So firstly, you measure ½ inch, which will serve as your seam allowance. Then you roll it out. Then you measure the length of your blouse. The length of my blouse that I'll be using is 22 inches. Then I will add another 1 inch for the seam allowance at the lower part. Then I'll rule that out also. After that, I'll measure all my measurements from the bust length, which is 9, my under bust, which is 13, my waist measurements, which is 16. Then I'll rule that out also. So now from the bust length measurement, I do take 2 inch upward. Then I'll rule a line that will serve as my chest line. Then on that part, I'll measure my shoulder measurement, which is 15, but 15 divided by 2, which is 7.5. I'll measure the same 7.5 at the chest line. Then I'll draw a line connecting both. So after that, I will divide the line, which is 7 into 2. Then I'll go down by a ½ inch. That is 7 divided by 2, 3.5 plus half, that's 4. Then I'll go in by ½ inch. Then on my chest line, I will measure my bust measurement divided by 4. My bust is 34. So 34 divided by 4, that's 8.5. Then I will draw a curve. After that, I will measure my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 7. 7 divided by 2, which is 3.5. Then I will add ½ inch to it, which is 4. Then I will mark it on my waist to my bust measurement and also on my hip. I'll just mark it all through like that. Then on my bust length, I'll go down by 1 inches. Then I'll connect the straight line, the 4 inches that I've measured across. Then I'll connect it like that. So on the end of the blouse too, you go up by 1 inches. So at the waist measurement, you measure ½ inch on both sides, that's 1 inch, ½ inch to the left and ½ inch to the right. Then you connect the lines. As I'm connecting it now, you connect the lines like that. Then you connect it down there too. So now we are done with our darts. Then let's measure our busts. You divide your bust measurement into 4. Then you add your sewing allowance, which I'm using 1 inches. You measure your waist too, divided by 4. You add your seam allowance, just joining allowance. Then you measure the dart you took out from that side. Then at the lower part, your hip measurement divided by 4. Then you add your sewing allowance. You only add your dart allowance to the waist because you took out 1 inch there. Then you connect the line. So after connecting the line, this is what I have. Then I want to do a side dart, but before then, let me label. So this is the chest line, the bust, the under bust, the waist, and the hip. So now at the bust area, I'll go down by 1 inches. Then at that point over there, I'll go in by 1 inch. So then I'll connect the points together. So this will serve as my side dart. So now let me go ahead and draw my neck. So I'll measure 3.5 by 3.5, 3.5 by 3.5, just to make the neck, the simple neck design. So then I'll connect it like that. So this is what I have after connecting the line. So let's draw our back bodies. So I'm just drawing a straight line over here, just to separate the front bodies from the back bodies. Then I will measure my ½ inch, measure my blouse length. The blouse length for the back is always different from the blouse length for the front, and this is because of the side dart. In case you're adding a side dart, since I added 1 inch side dart, so the length will be short by 1 inch. So now, just like I did to the front bodies, I will add my seam allowance at the lower part too. So now I'm trying to differentiate my zipper allowance or seam allowance in case you're not using the zipper. So I'm just ruling out 1 inch over there, then I will draw a straight line. So this will serve as my zipper or a seam allowance. So from that point over there, I'll measure my chest line, which is 7 inches. I'll measure my back measurement, which is 14.5. And I'll measure my bust length over there. Then I'll rule them out as I've done for the front bodies. So after that, I'll measure my shoulder, which is 15 inches divided by 2, which is 7.5. And I'll also mark it over the chest line. Then I'll roll it out. I will divide the line into 2, which is 3.5. I'll go down by ½ inch. Then I'll reduce. I'll take out just a little, not up to half at the back, but at the front I took out ½ inch. Then I'll measure my chest line, my bust measurement divided by 4 at the chest line. Then I'll connect the line, and I'll connect the armhole like that. After that, my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2, then adding ½ inch to it, that's 4, and I'll roll it out the way I did for the front bodies. Then I'll go up by 1 inch too at the end of my blouse measurement. Then at the waist area, I'll take off ½ inch from both sides. Then I'll connect it from the bust measurement. I didn't go down by 1 inch at the bust measurement because this is the back, so there's no need of going down by 1 inch. So I'll just connect the dart in that manner. So this is what we have after connecting the dart. Then I will measure my bust measurement. My bust divided by 4, which is 8.5. Then I'll add my seam allowance, which is 1 inches at the waist. My waist measurement divided by 4. The darts I took out there and my seam allowance. And I will measure my hip too. My hip divided by 4. and the sewing allowance. Note you only add that allowance to the waist, since that is where we took out the 1 inches. So then I'll connect the points together. So now let me just go ahead and also draw the neck pattern. I'm taking out 3.5 by 1.5 at the back, because I don't want the back to be low. So that's what I've done here, and I've connected it. So that's what we have. So that's the seam allowance. So slant your shoulder. I didn't tell you earlier, you go down by 3/4 inches. So this is what we have, and I've labeled it. The SA over there represents seam allowance. So that's my chest line, my bust line, my waistline, and my hip line. Then I'll just go ahead and cut it out. So I'll just go ahead now to differentiate the side seam allowance, to note it by the side, so you know that you've done your side seam allowance. So that's what I'm drawing out over there. So now I'll just go ahead and make a slant curve at the lower part of my blouse. I'll go up by 3/4 inches, then I'll just slant it like that. I'll do the same for the back piece. I'll do the same for the back piece too. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe, like, comment, share. Thank you. So now after doing that for both the front and the back bodies, so I will mark out the seam allowance for the back also, just like that. That's the seam allowance, which is 1 inches. So now I'm shading out the parts that are the darts parts. So I'm just shading it out so you know that those parts, they are darts. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for liking, for commenting, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.